Alright, so today I'm going to be looking at a piece for chamber orchestra by Milica Djordjević. It's called The Firefly in a Jar, and this is a quite short piece. It's like in the 6 to 7 minute range. And the ensemble itself, I'll get this out of the way, is 1111, 1110, two percussionists, or just one, I think, and 22222 for the strings. So there are, you can think of the strings as being in two groups, and those groups are divided like splitting each family in half. And some of them are tuned ordinarily, and then others are tuned a quarter tone higher than what's notated in the score. So that's one effect that's going on in this, some quarter tone stuff, and there is a moment in the piece where overpressure distortion is used. There's also some tremolos on the bridge in specific parts. And the arrangement of the ensemble is as such, with violins sort of on either side of the conductor, and then violas and cellos down the center as well, and then basses flanking the winds, and behind them the percussion and brass. Before we get into this listening, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the composer. I don't know much about her offhand, but I do like this piece. It's from 2007. I started listening to it in 2018, around then. So looking at Milica's Wikipedia here, she's a Serbian composer and was born in 1984. Grew up in Belgrade. She's won many awards. She has a specialization in electronic music, and she not only studied in Belgrade, but Strasbourg, studied with Ivan Fidel, and she studied at IRCAM when it was in Berlin. This particular piece is a piece that was performed by the Munich Chamber Orchestra. If we look at the first page of the score, which is much larger than the title page for some reason, we can see that it has this really distinctive opening in the strings, where every string player has their own part, and everybody is playing double stops, and it's this, well, not everybody, but almost everyone is playing double stops except for the two basses, and it's just this massive chord which everybody kind of plays together with shifting dynamics, and it's really fascinating, but I won't wax on about it. We should just give this a listen, and I will give a little bit of commentary today. If you need access to the recording, it's in the video description. And if that link no longer works, just send me a comment. Alright, so yeah, that was a lot of fun. Unfortunately for this one, I don't know if I'll be able to share the score, but this is a fantastic performance, and it's always a pleasure to listen to. One thing I noticed in this listen was how interesting her use of like these small intervals was. She like having the entire ensemble on a cluster, or an entire family of instruments just on a cluster, or playing around a few notes. Oftentimes, if somebody had something very active, another instrument would be doubling that narrow little line, like with the unison on most of so definitely kind of reminded me a little bit of Ligeti, and had like a sort of approach to composing that was more sound based and certainly informed by electronic music. I like this piece, especially in this series, because it's a great example of chamber orchestra writing, which would not necessarily translate to a full orchestra. I think the string writing here works best with 1/2 apart, and this is what it is meant for. And if you were to expand this to a full orchestra, you'd basically have to have even more individual string parts, and at that point it would become more of a like Penderecki textural thing. But with the ensemble the size that it is, it feels very like agile and tight and sort of immediate and lean, all kinds of things which sort of work in tandem with the piece's title. It's a very pleasant score to look at, seeing all these blocks of sound, and then hearing the results. And the highest note possible stuff in the winds was really cool too. That was sort of something that popped out of the texture a lot, and it added this sort of like luminance or brightness to the texture that was always kind of like startlingly colorful, and it's definitely made me think of a Firefly. If you are teaching about chamber orchestra, I think this is just a really good example of good chamber orchestra writing, and it's a fun piece. It gets people talking, and because of the programmatic element, I find students don't really mind how noisy and dissonant it is, because you wouldn't write something pretty and consonant with that title. So yeah.